Ladies and gentlemen, we have so much to talk about in this video that it's not even funny. So as I normally do before balance changes, we are going to predict what I think Clash Royale is going to balance in this next upcoming wave of balance changes. Of course, the last wave of balance changes hasn't been since December, which is really disappointing, but I expect an extremely big wave of balance changes. We're talking 20 plus cards that are going to be balanced. So I'm going to give you guys my predictions on what is going to be balanced. So if you guys do end up enjoying this video and you are new to the channel, then be sure to subscribe down below, because once this new update hits, once these new balance changes hit, I'm going to hit the content hard and I'm going to make tons of content, ladies and gentlemen. And also one more thing, if anyone from Supercell does end up seeing this video, then please consider bringing back monthly balance changes. I think 95% of the community misses these monthly balance changes because it freshened up the meta so much every single month. We got new balance changes, which meant new cards to try out in different decks, and it was so much fun. But not having balance changes since December has really made the game a lot more stale than it should have been. Also, I'm trying out a green screen behind me if you couldn't notice, so let me know what you guys think about that. So now it is time for us to look at our good friend Royale API. This is my go-to website when I want to look at Clash Royale card stats. So I'm going to leave a link down below in the description if you guys want to go ahead and check it out. All right, so how this is going to work is I'm going to go through the cards that I want to be nerfed. Then we'll talk about the cards I want to be buffed. Then we'll talk about the cards that I want to be completely reworked. So to start out, the very first nerf we're going to talk about is going to be for this man right here, the Hunter. 22% usage rate, 54% win rate. I think we can all agree that the Hunter needs a nerf. He's been a very strong card in Clash Royale for a very long time. I'd say 6 months at least. So the Hunter definitely needs a nerf. And so how I would nerf him is I would do what they did to the Musketeer a while back, and I would change his first attack speed and nerf that to make his first attack slower, or I would change his damage per bullet. The way the Hunter works is he shoots multiple bullets, of course, and the reason he can do so much damage when an enemy is up close is because all those bullets connect on that one enemy, but of course when an enemy is further away, he doesn't do as much damage. So if we nerf the damage per bullet, it will change the amount of damage he can do close range and hopefully make him a little bit worse, because he is dominating Clash Royale right now. Next up, we're going to talk about the most dominant building in this game, and that is the bomb tower right here. 15% usage rate and a 52% win rate. I think we can all agree again that the bomb tower needs a nerf. It is the best defensive building in Clash Royale and has been the best defensive building in Clash Royale for a very long time. I'd say honestly about a year, to keep it real. So to nerf the bomb tower, I have 3 potential things I think Supercell could do to nerf the bomb tower. They could nerf its attack speed and how fast it throws out the bombs. They could nerf how much death damage the bomb does, or they could nerf the splash radius of the attack of the bomb. I think all 3 of those nerfs are possible. They could do all 3 of them, or even if they do 2 of them, I think it will, you know, tone down the bomb tower, because it needs to be toned down. And then the next card we're going to nerf is actually right next to the bomb tower, and that is the balloon right here. Arguably the best win condition in Clash Royale. I know a lot of people are extremely frustrated with it, and for good reason. It is very strong, mainly due to the popularity of another card, which we'll talk about later. Even apart from that card, the balloon is still just extremely strong. So the biggest thing with the balloon: damage nerf. Okay, its speed is already incredibly slow. Its hit speed is already incredibly slow. So really, what can you do to the balloon except nerfed its damage? Its HP really isn't that strong either. It dies to a rocket. So we need to nerf the balloon's damage. It's that simple. It does incredible amounts of damage, and maybe along with that, tone down the damage of the death bomb as well. I actually just thought about that, but balloon, we need it to be nerfed. Next up, we got the homie, the cannon cart. Another ridiculously strong card, a 56% win rate. That is incredible for any card in Clash Royale. That is absolutely incredible. And Cannon Cart again has been one of the better cards in Clash Royale for an extremely long time. So we need to nerf it for sure. So to nerf it, we're gonna nerf its attack speed, because this thing hits incredibly fast. Honestly, the damage it does really isn't that terrible. It's just the amount of damage it can do in the amount of time that it has to attack. That made no sense, but it basically has a very high DPS. So yeah. And then we have the biggest, the baddest, the meanest tank in Clash Royale that I know everyone hates, including myself. And that is the Lava Hound right here. Its usage rate isn't that staggering. It's about average at 8%, but a 57% win rate, that is pretty staggering. That's a very staggering win rate. And honestly, I don't think its usage rate does it justice. The Lava Hound is absolutely everywhere. You see Lava Loon, you see Lava Miner, you see Lava Freeze. Yes, Lava Freeze has become a thing. So nerf the Lava Hound. It's a tank. So what's the best thing you do to nerf a tank? You nerf its HP. You nerf the Lava Hound's HP. That helps that out a bunch. And also we nerf the amount of damage that the Lava Pups can do to balance them. Next up, we're actually going to scroll back up. I don't know why I forgot this earlier. We're going to talk about the Knight, the card with the third highest usage rate in Clash Royale at 27% and a slightly below average win rate at 49%. But I think we all know the Knight, of course, is absolutely everywhere. It absolutely wreaks havoc. It's such a strong card for 3 elixir, and since it's a common card, you know, everyone has it leveled up at least level 12 to keep it real if you use the Knight. And so what we need to do the Knight, I think we maybe nerf its attack speed by a little bit and then nerf its HP so that way it doesn't take 3 hits to kill it from a P.E.K.K.A. For those of you that don't know, after 2 hits, the Knight survives with a sliver of HP, but that sliver of HP is still enough to distract the P.E.K.K.A. So you nerf the Knight's HP, so that way a P.E.K.K.A. 2-shots it. That is actually indirect buff to the P.E.K.K.A, and it's a nerf to the HP of the Knight against all other cards. So it's a win for the P.E.K.K.A and a win for every other card as well, but a bigger win for the P.E.K.K.A, if that makes any sense. And also a nerf to the Knight also pretty much nerfs tons of other decks. It nerfs a lot of cycle decks, including the wall breaker cycle decks and stuff like that. It will nerf graveyard decks as well because the Knight is a very good tank for the graveyard. So really we nerf the Knight and make the Knight, you know, not nearly as good. It nerfs a lot of other cards indirectly as well. And like I said, it buffs some cards indirectly as well, such as the P.E.K.K.A. All right, so next up, where is it? It's somewhere in here. Where is he? Oh, here he is. We have the Fish Boy. All right, so in terms of the Fisherman, I'm not going to do too much to the Fisherman, and I'll explain why. But all I want to do is just nerf its damage by a little bit. Now, I'm not going to nerf its hook mechanic or its HP or anything else, and let me explain why. So the Fisherman is an extremely unique card in Clash Royale, and it has been incredibly hard for Clash Royale to balance it ever since it's been released. You know, when it was originally released and it was 4 elixir, it was really bad. But then when they first changed it to 3 elixir, it was incredibly good. Then they nerfed it into the ground, then they buffed it to be good again. And the Fisherman has kind of woven its place into the meta, and I like where it is, to be honest. I still think it is a little strong, and that's why I'm just going to tone down its damage by a little bit. But I don't want to nerf any of its other mechanics because a card like this is already incredibly hard to balance, a card that can just move cards around the arena. So I don't want to nerf it too much, but just a little bit to make it just a little bit worse. But I don't want to change it too much because the Fisherman, I think he deserves a spot in the meta because of how unique he is. And so yeah, that's my whole rant about the Fisherman. Then we have the newest spirit in Clash Royale, which is the Electro Spirit. 57% win rate. When you have a win rate that is higher than the cannon cart, you are a very good card in Clash Royale. So the biggest issue with the Electro Spirit is I like the fact that it has the stun mechanic for a 1 elixir card. That's very unique. So we're not changing that at all, but we're going to change how much that it chains, all right? So Electro Spirit can chain on up to 9 cards. 9 cards is its maximum. What if we change that so that way it chains to only 6 or 7 cards? To nerf how many cards it changes, it'll make it a little bit more vulnerable to swarms. It'll still be able to deal with things like a Goblin Gang and a Minion Horde pretty effectively, but against like huge clumps of swarms like a Skeleton Army, it won't be as effective. So we're going to tone it down just a little bit, make it so that way it only chains. I'm going to go with 6 times. I think that's a decent nerf for the Electro Spirit. Next up, we're going to have a nerf to the Flying Machine, okay? Its usage rate isn't that staggering, but again, we look at the win rate, 56%. That's an incredible win rate. And so the Flying Machine is in some of the best decks in Clash Royale right now. You guys know that Royal Recruits, Royal Hog, Zappy's Fireball Bait deck. I actually made a video on that, so you guys can go check that out. There should be an info card in this corner up here. I made a whole video on that deck, but the Flying Machine is a very important piece in that deck. It's a very important piece in a lot of different Lava Hound decks. What other decks is it prominent in? Even clone decks like Giant Skeleton Clone. Flying Machine is pretty prominent there. So what we do to the Flying Machine, here's what we do. I need to look at my notes. I forgot what I was gonna say. So what I wrote down, first attack speed nerf, again similar to what I would do to the Hunter and what happened to the Musketeer, and also a very slight damage nerf. Now I'm talking very, very slight, like maybe a 2% damage nerf, but just a slight damage nerf would help a bunch, okay? But the biggest thing is that first attack speed, to tone that up a little bit. Then we have another card that we briefly mentioned when talking about the Flying Machine, and that is the Royal Hogs. The Royal Hogs are one of the highest win rate win conditions in Clash Royale. Again, their usage rate may fool you, but this card is a very good card. So to nerf the Royal Hogs, it's pretty simple. We give them a little damage nerf. We give like a 3 or 4% nerf to each little piggy. So if you nerf each pig's attack by like 4%, that adds up over the course of all 4 of the pigs. So you don't want to change it too much, but a little damage nerf will help a bunch. So that's it for the nerfs, and that is a lot of nerfs. So now we'll move on to the buffs, and then actually at the end I have some honorable mention cards. I didn't say that in the beginning of the video, but you guys are going to want to stay around for that because I have some things that I'm going to explain, okay? All right, so the first buff we're going to talk about is one that is just obvious. It's obvious. It's the Mama Witch right here, the Mother Witch herself. She is an absolutely awful card. 1% usage rate, 36% win rate. Ever since it was released, it was absolutely terrible. I thought that upon its release, it was going to be a good card, but boy, I was wrong. It's an absolute trash can. So to nerf the Mother Witch, not to nerf the Mother Witch, excuse me. We don't want to nerf this card, okay? But to buff the Mother Witch, okay? We buff its damage by a lot. A lot. This thing does no damage at all. Then we also buff its attack speed. I think its HP is okay. I like the fact that it dies to Fireball. Similar to a Magic Archer in that respect. I think that's a good aspect of it. And it already has an extremely new mechanic when it changes cards in the pigs. So we buff its damage, we buff its attack speed. That helps out the Mother Witch a bunch, I'm telling you. Next up, we're going to talk about a card that many of you may not have thought to see on this list, but that is the Inferno Tower. I would like to see a buff to the Inferno Tower, to keep it real. Now, the main reason I'm saying this is because I predict that even if Clash Royale does nerf the Bomb Tower, which I'm predicting that they will, the Bomb Tower is still going to be an extremely solid card. And so then maybe to make the Bomb Tower even a little bit less better, that's extremely improper grammar, but we're going to buff the Inferno Tower, another defensive building, okay? So we buff it so that way it has a faster retarget speed, and then we also on top of that give it a very slight HP buff. You know, I think the Inferno Tower, it was like the OG defensive building in cycle decks. So let's bring it back, okay? All right, then we got another one which may be a little bit controversial that we're going to talk about. Where is it? Here it is. My man, the Royal Delivery. This is one of my favorite cards in the game, but I think Supercell is going to buff it actually because it is a pretty low usage rate, and I think more people could be using it. So I think what they're going to do to the Royal Delivery is give it a little bit of its knockback back. That's difficult to say, but I think that's what they're going to do. Not all of its knockback, because before its knockback was absolutely unreal. It could just shut down absolutely anything. But just giving a little bit of its knockback back to it, you know, that would make it a much better card. I'm not saying it's a bad card right now. I just think it could be better, you know? A 3% usage rate puts this card to shame because it's a very fun card to use. The noises it makes are fun as well. Then we have a buff to the other witch. No, not the Night Witch. My girl, the Night Witch, she's vibing right now, okay? We're gonna buff the other witch, and that witch, where is she? The regular witch. Dude, when you got a 16% usage rate, you're a garbage can and you need a buff, all right? So for the witch, what I want to do, give her death skeletons back. You guys remember a while ago when the witch would spawn 3 skeletons, or was it 4 skeletons? It was 3 or 4 skeletons when she died, all right? That would make her a lot better, especially on defense, all right? It'd make her a much better defensive card, defending against especially things like P.E.K.K.A.s, all right? That get easily distracted, those single targeting units, a Sparky as well. It'd make her much better on defense and maybe buff her damage just a little bit, or her splash damage radius as well. She spawns enough skeletons, that's fine, but buffing those other things, giving her the death skeletons, buffing her damage or attack speed, that can make the witch a little bit better. Even if it's only like, you know, a 2 or 3% usage rate and like a 45% win rate, that's better than where she is right now. Then I want to give a little buff to my man, the Royal Ghost. The Royal Ghost isn't doing terrible or anything, but just compared to the other splash damaging ground cards in Clash Royale, or really just compared to the Dark Prince, to keep it real, the Royal Ghost is completely overshadowed, and as a legendary card, I think he deserves more love. So really, to buff the Royal Ghost, we're just going to buff his damage, all right? He needs to do more damage. He actually has a pretty solid splash radius. He can splash on a lot of things. Again, his invisibility mechanic is really unique. The fact that he can hover as well, same as the Battle Healer, that's cool. Let's give him a little bit of a damage buff, all right? Then we're also going to buff the Executioner, another splash damaging card that is really bad, a 29% usage rate. That's absolutely disgraceful. So to buff the Exy, I think we give it a damage buff so that way it can deal with tanks more effectively, especially things like lava hounds and balloons, and also give it a first attack speed buff because it takes him a little bit to, you know, wind up his axe and then throw it. So if you buff that, it'll help him deal with swarms more effectively and sooner as well. And then the last buff I want to talk about is actually a buff to 4 cards at once, and these cards are going to be the 4 main spawners. We're talking about the Tombstone, the Goblin Hut right here, the Barbarian Hut down here, the Furnace, and then also, where is it? The Elixir Collector. We're talking about buffing these 5 cards right here and buffing their HP. Just a little bit of an HP buff, nothing too extreme. But the main reason that I want to do this is because if the Earthquake is going to stay where it is, it doesn't have, you know, extremely overbearing stats or anything, but the Earthquake does incredible damage to buildings. It's absolutely unreal. And if the Earthquake is going to do that, if it is going to do that much damage to buildings, it renders the spawners useless in the current state of Clash Royale. So if you buff the HP of the spawners, it will help them out a little bit to combat the Earthquake. And the Elixir Collector as well, because the Elixir Collector is just straight up hard countered by the Earthquake, and it is completely useless against it. So those are all of the buffs that I wanted to mention. Now I have a couple of different reworks that I want to go over. So I think the biggest rework we can potentially expect is to the Royal Recruits. Now again, looking at the Royal Recruits, their stats are they could fool you. The usage rate isn't that good. The win rate is very good though. But if you've ever played against Royal Recruits, which I'm assuming most of you have, they are extremely hard to play against, all right? The fact they can defend both lanes, the fact that they have shields, so that way they can survive against any dang spell, the fact that they do actually a pretty good amount of damage, it makes them extremely hard to go against and honestly not that fun to go against. So in order to rework the Royal Recruits, this may be a little bit of a far-fetched idea, but what you do, instead of having them like spawn 3 and 3, going down both lanes, have them spawn in a cluster, kind of like, where are they? The Barbarians, wherever they are, right here. Have them spawn in a cluster like the Barbarians. So that way they can still be split 3 and 3, but not, you know, instantly, you know. You can play them reactively better on defense against things like a Hog Rider, but that also makes them better to counter. You know, if you have like a Wizard, it makes the Wizard it makes it a lot easier to counter the Royal Recruits. I don't know why I'm stumbling my words so much, but basically make the Royal Recruits spawn in a cluster compared to spawning in a straight line, because as they are right now, they are pretty overbearing to deal with. And also on top of that, give them a little bit of a damage nerf as well. And then the other major rework I want to go over is going to be to the mirror right here. 1% usage rate, 28% win rate. The mirror needs a pretty big rework. So here's what we do to the mirror. We make it so that way it still mirrors cards, of course, because that's the point of the mirror, but it mirrors them for the same elixir cost and keeps them at the same level. So that way you don't have to spend that extra elixir, which is just extremely annoying. I don't feel like there's a point in that. If you make the mirror, you know, the same elixir cost, say you want to mirror a Dart Goblin, and make the Dart Goblin still 3 elixir, and if your Dart Goblin is level 13, it stays at level 13, okay? I feel like that'll make the mirror a little bit more better, because I don't really think mirroring a card for 1 extra level justifies that extra elixir that you're going to spend. So those are the reworks I wanted to talk about. Now I have a few other cards that I wanted to talk about that I didn't mention in this video to be buffed or nerfed, and I want to explain why I don't think they will be buffed or nerfed. So the first of these that we're going to talk about is going to be the Zappies. I bet a lot of you were wondering, you know, why aren't the Zappies in the nerf category? The Zappies are extremely strong. But here's the deal with the Zappies. The Zappies are kind of like the Fisherman in how they've just been so hard to balance in Clash Royale. But I think the Zappies will already receive an indirect nerf because of the nerfs to all the other Fireball bait cards that are going to get nerfed. I think, such as the Flying Machine and the Royal Hogs and the Royal Recruits. If all of those things receive nerfs or reworks that make them worse, the Zappies are going to go down with them as well. It won't render the Zappies totally useless. They'll still find a spot in the meta, I think. But I think just nerfing the Zappies, it'll kill them. Because really, how can you nerf? Supercell's pretty much tried in every way, shape, or form to fix the Zappies to make them balanced, all right? And it's been incredibly difficult for them to do it. And right now, it's probably the most balanced they've been, even though they're on the stronger side. So I just don't think they need to touch the Zappies, touch other cards around the Zappies, all right? And that will help make the Zappies more balanced. Another card we're going to talk about is the Mega Knight. I know a lot of you guys hate the Mega Knight, but truth be told, the Mega Knight isn't deserving of a nerf. It really isn't. It isn't at all. Just the fact that a lot of people use a card and the fact that you can't defend it doesn't mean that it needs a nerf, okay? Sorry to call some of you out there. I made a YouTube short talking about 5 ways to counter the Mega Knight. Go ahead and check that out. There's an info card for it up there. It doesn't deserve a nerf. It's not justified one bit. Sorry for being so aggressive there. I'm realizing now how aggressive that sounded, but that's how I feel. Another one I want to talk about was the Tornado. So I actually made a whole video. It was my last video on the channel. I made a whole video talking about how I think the tornado will always be unbalanced. So at this point, I don't really think Supercell should touch it, just to keep it real, because if they nerf it, it's going to be bad. Like, if they nerf it to the point where it, like, really with the tornado, basically to sum up that video, I don't think there's really any way you can balance it. It's either going to be really good or really bad. So if they nerf it to make it really bad, it'll just be useless. But that's the tornado for you. Go watch, just go watch the video. It's up here, okay? Then another one I want to talk about was the Electro Giant. Where's the man right here? See, the Electro Giant is difficult to go up against. I will say that. But really, why did my screen rotate? But because the Electro Giant is such a niche card, and because you don't face it that often, because of that, I don't think it'll get a nerf. Let the Electro Giant users, let them have their time in the sun. All right, just let them do their thing. They're not really hurting too many people, and just let the Electro Giant vibe, okay? And then last but not least, we have this card right here. I will not say this Forsaken card's name. Yeah, nothing needs to happen to it. It's fine. Maybe if they're gonna do anything, maybe nerf it even more. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very long video, and I'm aware of that, but there's so many cards that I wanted to talk about because I think they're going to change so many cards in Clash Royale. I believe in total we talked about 23 cards in Clash Royale that I predict will be balanced, and I hope that Supercell does balance at least 20 cards because at least 20 cards do need to be balanced in this game. So yeah, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to leave a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe. As I said, I'll be hitting content hard once a new update drops, so be sure to subscribe for all of that. We're on the road to 5,000 and we're really close. The grind has been slow lately, but that's just because Clash Royale has been pretty stale. But we're going to pick things back up again, I promise. So if you're new here, be sure to subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. But anyway, gamers, it's your boy Solar Fury signing off. Peace out, guys. Have a nice day.